Greetings, everybody, and welcome back to Nursery Production and Management. Today's topic is nursery personnel, and we are going to take a look at how different nurseries are organized from the personnel perspective. Nursery personnel organization. So let's go ahead and go to the PowerPoint. So this will be about how nurseries are organized in terms of personnel. So personnel is just another way of referring to all the different employees that a nursery has. So we're going to start out by looking at a small wholesale nursery to see how it might be organized. And keep in mind that no two nurseries are going to be exactly the same. So what I'm going to show you in the next slide is just kind of a generic representation of how a smaller wholesale nursery in the United States might be organized in terms of its personnel. But different nurseries are going to handle this differently, and really no two nurseries are going to be exactly the same. All right, so we see that up at the top we have a nursery manager, and the nursery manager is in charge of the entire nursery organization. So they are right here. And generally there will be a secretary or an administrative assistant that will support the nursery manager. Underneath the nursery manager in this small wholesale nursery scenario, we have three other managers. We have a plant propagator, we have a production superintendent, and we have a sales manager. So let's go ahead and begin with the propagator. So the propagator is the person that's responsible for the propagation of all the different trees and shrubs and ground covers that nursery would require in terms of its production output. So propagators can propagate trees by grafting and budding. Propagators can propagate shrubs, usually by softwood cuttings. Lots of plants can be propagated from seed. Plants can be propagated using a method called layering or division. So there are different ways, different tools that a propagator can propagate plants for the nursery. Now, in my experience, most plant propagators don't propagate everything that the nursery requires. There are usually some plants that it might just be easier to buy those in from a specialty nursery. All right, the other manager that we see listed right here is the production superintendent. Okay, and this person is responsible for the production of the finished plant material. And in this particular nursery, the way that it's organized is really there's two types of production that are occurring. There is production in containers, that's over here, but then there's also production in the field. So we might assume that the field production might be balled and burlapped production. And we already know what container production is. So the production superintendent would be in charge of the container foreman and the field production foreman. The production superintendent is directly responsible for the production of the products that the nursery sells. Also under the production superintendent is a third position, and that is the pest control, storage, and shipping foreman. All right, I'm going to go ahead and erase those for now. And let's look at the sales manager, which is kind of in the middle to the right. So the sales manager, that particular position is pretty self-explanatory. That person is in charge of all the products that are produced by the production superintendent. So the sales manager is in charge of the sale of all nursery products. Okay, so this is an example of a small wholesale nursery. So let's go to the next slide and take a look at how a larger wholesale nursery might be organized. All right, so you can already see that the organizational chart is a little more complex than we saw previously. Okay, now we have, in this scenario, we've got a president or a chief executive officer, that's CEO, and the president is responsible to a group of people called the board of directors. And then again, the president would also have a secretary or an administrative assistant that would support him or her. And then there would be an office manager. Okay, and then you can see there's a layer here and service units right here. And you can see all the different positions that fall under staff and service units. So let me go ahead and erase some of this so it doesn't look quite so complicated. Get rid of that. All right, so starting kind of on the lower left-hand side, we have a skilled labor pool manager. So what do we mean by skilled labor? Well, skilled labor can mean several different things. You might have some people that are very experienced in grafting or budding, which is kind of a specialty thing. It's something that an employee does not pick up in a day or even a week. It takes, really years of practice to become proficient at it. So that would definitely be a skilled labor position. And then anybody that operates any equipment for the nursery, whether they operate a tractor or a skid steer loader, or whether they're pulling a cultivator through a field to control weeds, those would be an example of skilled positions. A larger wholesale nursery like this would also have a computer specialist, and the specialist would be really responsible for inputting and maintaining the inventory for the nursery. So what we mean by inventory is at least once a year, every tree, every shrub, every container grown plant, every product that nursery sells needs to be counted. But it's not just counted and lumped together in one big category. It's counted and separated by its grade. And we already talked about how you assign grades to plants. So the computer specialist would be maintaining the inventory, because when a customer calls the nursery, people are going to have to get onto their computers. They're going to have to look at the nursery's inventory and determine whether or not they have the products that the customer is asking for. So very important to maintain the inventory, and that would be the job of the computer specialist. Now, there may be other technology aspects apart from the inventory that this position might be responsible for as well. Okay, then there's a personnel manager. So this person would be in charge of really all employees. A comptroller would be in charge of the financial business of the nursery. Pest control manager, that's pretty self-explanatory. Some nurseries have their own research and development departments. And a lot of times the person that's hired to do that is called a horticulturalist. So that position would probably require a 4-year degree from a university, a degree in horticulture or horticulture science, for example. All right, and then kind of moving to the right of the pest control manager, we have the storage manager. So what we're referring to here is the storage of any plants that are in refrigerated cold storage. So managing all those plants to make sure they're remaining healthy while they're in storage. The traffic coordinator would be responsible for coordinating the shipment of orders, anything that the nursery is shipping out, but also coordinating any incoming loads of plant material that are going to be delivered to the nursery. The shipping dock foreman is really responsible for making sure the trucks are loaded with the right plants before they get shipped out to the customers. Most nurseries, including the nursery that I worked for in Northern Illinois, have a shop, and then in charge of the shop, here they call it an equipment manager. But there's going to be somebody that is going to be qualified to maintain and repair all the different kinds of equipment that the nurseries use. And this can be a very mission critical position because if it's harvest season and one of your machines, your harvesting machines breaks down, then you're going to be in trouble because you're depending on those diggers, those tree diggers to dig trees up tree, and if they're not working during the digging season, that's going to be a problem. So it's important to have a good equipment manager, a good shop manager that can keep everything maintained. And then a seasonal labor pool manager. So this would be the unskilled labor. So we saw skilled labor kind of way over on the left-hand side. So this particular person would be in charge of laborers that are just hired on for the season, so they're not full-time employees. In Texas, people like to be brought on in February, and then they might be let go sometime in November. At the nursery I worked for in Illinois, it really wasn't until March that we started to bring our seasonal labor back in, and then by Thanksgiving, most of those seasonal laborers were gone. All right, so there's a lot there under staff and service units. Let's go ahead and erase those so that we can get down to the next level. Just give me 1 second here. Get rid of these. All right, so the next level, line units. And what I like to think of is, I kind of think of a production line, and then the term line unit makes more sense to me. So anybody that has a line position with the nursery is going to be in charge of some aspect of the production of the products that the nursery sells. Okay, so really everybody above a line level supervisor, everybody above that level, they're really just there to support the line managers, because the line unit managers are the ones that are responsible for the production of the plants that the nursery sells. So in this large nursery flow chart, we also have a propagation manager. And when we looked at the small wholesale nursery, we discussed what that propagation manager would do. Okay, then we have another manager called the liner manager. So the propagator creates or makes propagated plants, and it's eventually come under the care of the liner manager. The liner manager is going to be kind of in charge of small plant culture. They'll be taking those small liners that come out of propagation and growing them into larger liners that will eventually either be put into containers or they'll be lined out / planted in the field. So that position is called a liner manager. And then in this particular nursery has a container division, so we have a container production manager right there. And this nursery has a field production division, so we have a field production manager. And then finally, we have to have somebody or several people that are going to be to sell the products that the nursery creates. So one other thing to remember, it's not uncommon for nurseries to grow the same plant both as a container and in the field. So for example, I could have I could be growing snow mound spireas in containers, but I may also have snow mound spirea growing out in the field as perhaps a balled and burlap plant. I may have some small caliper red maples growing in large containers. I may have larger caliper red maples growing in the field as balled and burlap plants. So it's very common for nurseries to kind of offer their products in different ways, either as a container grown plant or as a field produced or field grown plant. And that probably has to do a little bit with the seasonal aspect of digging plants out of the field. In Texas, you wouldn't want to be digging plants out of the field in the middle of the summer because it's just too hot and it's just not a good time to be digging plants out of the field. But you could, sell those same plants if they were grown in a container. So I think that's why nurseries kind of duplicate their efforts and have, some of the same plants produced in containers that they also grow in the field. Okay, so really that's just kind of a real brief look at nursery personnel organization. There were a couple other things I wanted to share with you. We already talked about ONET online in a previous video, and I brought you to the website. I showed you how to use it, and we did a search and found out about nursery and greenhouse managers. We figured out what they earn and what types of skills and education they would need to do their work. We already mentioned that ONET is sponsored by the U.S. Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration, and that it's a tool for career exploration and job analysis. So if you're looking at the full PowerPoint version of this presentation, there are links here that will take you back to ONET if you want to investigate that further. For example, this link will take you to the page that we already looked at in the previous video about nursery and greenhouse managers. This link will take you to a page called Soil and Plant Scientists. So this would be the closest thing to a horticulturalist. So when we looked at the large wholesale nursery personnel organizational chart, we saw that some nurseries have a research and development division that's usually headed up by a horticulturalist. So the link that's on this page will send you to that occupation's job description and tell you how much people that work as horticulturalists can expect to make or earn. This link is for line supervisors. And this link is for a sales representative. So all these links are ONET online links that you can look at if you're viewing the full PowerPoint version of this presentation. Some other things that you might be interested in, there are websites that specialize in horticultural careers. For example, there is one called hortjobs.com, and I actually have this website up. I want to take you to it. So just give me 1 second to get over there. Let's see. Okay, so you're probably looking at me now. Let me go over here and do this. Okay, so now we're looking at jobs in horticulture. So this particular website is giving you or providing you with job openings across the United States in several different categories. So this is not strictly jobs in the nursery industry. If you look kind of across the bottom here, you see all these circles, and then they have little smaller circles that tell you there are 780 jobs that have been posted to jobs in agriculture that are in the area of arboriculture, or some people say arboriculture, which is kind of the care of trees. There are 350 jobs posted in irrigation. There are 202 jobs posted in or for the landscape industry, 59 jobs in sales, marketing, and public relations, 17 golf course positions, and 8 positions with nurseries, 6 greenhouse positions. So let's go ahead and click on the nursery right there. So this pulls up job postings. So each one of these kind of white boxes is actually a posting. And this one is for Glen Mills, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, posted on September 26, 2020. So they're looking for a nursery customer sales associate that will contribute to driving sales by naturally engaging the customer on common interest, culture, gardening, as well as sharing plant knowledge and plant care. So the name of the company is Terrain. Okay, here's another job posting from the same company. This is a receiving and fulfillment associate. This is posting with the J. Frank Schmidt and Son Company, and this is for a mechanic. So this would be, you know, the equipment kind of manager position. Underneath the equipment manager, there may be several mechanics working. So this is a mechanic that's needed to presumably maintain and repair equipment at this nursery. Okay, this is also at J. Frank Schmidt and Son, and this is a deciduous tree grower's position. This is at J. Frank Schmidt, and they are looking for a spray applicator supervisor, a bald and burlap department manager. This one down here at the bottom is at a company that actually I'm familiar with. I've been to this place. This is called Midwest Ground Covers. This is equipment maintenance and facilities manager. So there you go. So let's go ahead and click and see what other things we can find out about it. So one of the positions, the equipment maintenance and facilities manager, is in Kane County, Illinois. And then they're looking for an accountant that would be in St. Charles, Illinois. So 2 different full-time positions there. Okay, so that's jobs in horticulture. You got a feel for how it's laid out. I'm gonna stop sharing that and close this, go back to this. And let's see if we can get our PowerPoint back up. Okay, here's another website that specializes in jobs horticultural jobs, and this one is called horticulturaljobs.com. Now, when I tested this PowerPoint and clicked on the link didn't work, so you might have to go to this site manually to see if you can get into it. I'm not sure why the link didn't work. Horticulture.com, this one did work, so you can click on that link if you want to check it out. And then, of course, some others that a lot of people use. There's Indeed and Glassdoor. These are applications that you can load onto your cell phone, and you can actually search for jobs in horticulture and the nursery industry using these two well-known tools, Indeed and Glassdoor. Okay, so that is the end of this. Let me stop sharing it. Okay, so that was all I had for you guys in this presentation. Thanks for watching.